let's talk about Chapter 6, Opening and Servicing Customer Accounts. Now, there are 12 questions on the exam coming from this material here. What are the requirements to open an account? Well, you have to fill out the new account form. What's the information that we're going to gather on the new account form? We're going to get the name of the client, their address, their date of birth. Now, we're getting the date of birth to make sure that they are of legal age to open an account. We also want to find out what their occupation is. We're going to also gather information about their employer. What's the name of their employer? What's the address for their employer? Tax identification number. You might see that as a reference to TIN, and of course that's a business. If it's an individual, we need the Social Security number. Now, who has to sign the new account form? The new account form must be signed by the principal. It is not signed by the client. It's not signed by the registered rep. It's signed by the principal. Now, somebody's probably saying, well, now that's just not true. I know that the registered rep has to sign this form. I know that the customer has to sign this form. And that may be true, but that's not a FINRA rule. That is a broker-dealer rule. Broker-dealers can always make their own rules as long as they're more severe than FINRA rules and regulations. Broker-dealer rules are known as house rules. So while a broker-dealer might require the registered rep and the customer to sign the new account form, FINRA only requires the principal sign the new account form. Now, discretionary account. This is an account where the registered representative, RR, has trading authority. Now, folks, on the test, I expect you to see RR. That stands for registered representative. So a discretionary account is an account where the registered representative has been given trading authority. Which means the registered representative is going to decide the action, whether to buy or sell, or they're going to decide the amount, or they're going to decide the asset. So if a registered rep makes any of those three decisions, they must have discretionary authority. Now we see here that time and price are not discretion. Now what must occur before the first discretionary order can be entered? Well, written discretionary authority must be received from the customer. Must be received from the customer. And that written discretionary authority is going to contain the date that discretion is granted. What else has to happen before the first discretionary order can be entered? The principal must give written approval for the registered rep to use discretion. The principal must give written approval for the registered rep to use discretion. So those are the two things required before we can enter the first order. Now let's run through some scenarios here and let's find out what's discretion, what's not discretion. I'm a registered rep. I have a client who has not given me discretionary authority. They call me up one day and they tell me to buy 100 shares of ABC stock. Let me decide the best price or the best time. I enter the trade. Is that a legal or illegal trade? That's a perfectly legal trade because the client did everything that required discretion. They decided the action, buy. They decided the amount, 100 shares. They decided the asset, ABC. All I decided was the best time, the best price. That's not discretion. If I decided action amount or asset, I would have had discretionary authority. Now, another scenario. I'm a registered rep. I have not been given discretionary authority by my client. My client calls me up and asks me to buy 100 shares of a good technology company. I do not have discretionary authority. Could I enter that trade? No, because the client is leaving the decision regarding the asset to me. Client told me the action, they told me the amount, but they're letting me decide the asset. I would not be able to enter that order without first receiving written discretionary authority from the client and that being approved by my principal. Account types include an individual account. Now, an individual account can be marked as a TOD, transfer on death. TOD, transfer on death. We could instead open up a joint account. Joint accounts would include joint tenants with right of survivorship, JTWROS, JTWROS, or tenants in common, TIC, tenants in common. We could instead open up a minor account. These are custodial accounts. Minor accounts would include Uniform Gift to Minors Act and would include Uniform Transfer to Minors Act, UGMA and UTMA. Let's take a look at some details here. Individual account. This is the simplest and most common type of account. Now, as I said a few moments ago, an individual account can be marked TOD, transfer on death. What does that mean? That means that the assets in the account will pass to the beneficiary named on the account upon the owner's death. Now, the beneficiary has no claim to these assets until the owner dies. No claim to these assets till the owner dies. Well, when the owner dies, these assets pass to the named beneficiary. And these assets bypass probate, which means they bypass the will. They bypass the will. No one could contest this beneficiary receiving the assets in the TOD. No one could contest the beneficiary receiving the assets in the TOD. Now, be careful. Even though the assets bypass the will, they go to the beneficiary. They will continue to be part of the estate of the deceased. They will continue to be part of the estate of the deceased. Joint account, JTWROS, joint tenants with right of survivorship. This is an account registered in more than one name. Registered in more than one name. Now, this account has equal ownership. If I have a joint account with my wife, JTWROS, I own the account equally with my wife. I own the account equally with my wife, the other owner. Upon one of the owner's death, assets in the account pass to the survivor, the other owner. So my wife and I have a JTWROS account. We own the account equally. I die. How much of the account does she now own? All of it, 100%. 100%. The next joint account is TIC, tenants in common. This is unequal ownership. Upon death, assets pass to deceased heirs or estate, not other owner. So I open up a joint account with a business partner. This is a tenants in common account, TIC. I put 40% of the money in the account. My business partner puts 60% of the money in the account. Business partner dies. Does that 60% of the account that my business partner owned, does that become my property? No, it does not. I continue to own the 40% of the account. The 60% of the account that my partner owned passes to my business partner's heirs or their estate. Custodial accounts could either be an UGMA or UTMA account. Now, with a custodial account, whether UGMA or UTMA does not matter, there's one child on the account who is the beneficial owner. There's one custodian for the account. No such thing as co-custodians. Now, we could name a successor custodian. You know, John is the custodian, successor custodian is Sally. So if John can't serve, Sally would, but no co-custodians. Gifts are irrevocable. Once the gift is given, it cannot be taken back. Cannot be taken back. Grandmama's got this cute little grandbaby. She's about 3. She's just a doll. She is just so cute, got little pigtails. Grandmama loves her so much. Grandmama puts $100,000 into a custodial account for this child. Can she do that? Absolutely. There's no limit as to the amount of the gift. No limit as to the amount of the gift. The little girl turns 17. Baby, you didn't turn out like I thought you would. I'm going to have to take my money back. Girl says, I know I didn't turn out like you thought I would. You cannot have the money back because once the gift is given, it is irrevocable. It is irrevocable. Now, in that scenario I just gave you, Grandma put $100,000 in the account. No problem. There's no limit as to the gift. But gift limits from a taxation standpoint still apply. Grandmama is a single tax filer. She gave $100,000. Grandma is going to have to pay tax on $87,000 of that gift in the year the gift is given. So while there's no limit as to the gift limits as it relates to the Internal Revenue Code still applies. Still applies. Well, what happens if the child dies? Then the assets in the account go to the estate of the child, cannot be taken out. Now, the custodian is responsible for managing the account. The custodian manages the account. The assets can be used, assets in the account can be used to benefit the child. Could the assets be used to pay for the child's medical expenses? Sure. Education expenses? Absolutely. Absolutely. To repay student loan debt of the custodian? No. No, absolutely not. Only to benefit the child. Now, if the custodian is also the donor, then the custodian may not charge a custodial fee, may not charge a fee to manage the account. But if the custodian is different from the donor, then they could charge a custodial fee. I set up a custodial account for my son. I'm the donor. I name myself as custodian. I may not charge my son a fee to manage the account. But if I named a different custodian, they could. Now, when the custodian and the donor are the same person, they may not charge a custodial fee, but the custodian may be reimbursed for expenses related to executing their duties as a manager of the account. So if the custodian had a tax return for the custodial account prepared by an accountant, and then the custodian paid the accountant for the services rendered, then the custodian could deduct that amount from the custodial account to reimburse themselves for expenses, but no custodial fee, no management fee. Now, the account must contain the name of the custodian, must contain the name of the child, must also contain the Social Security number of the child. Now, the reason the Social Security number is required is that the child, the minor, has the tax liability. While the custodian would be responsible for preparing a tax return and filing it with the Internal Revenue Service, the tax liability rests with the child. So the child would have to pay the tax. So the tax could be taken out, the taxes due could be taken out of the custodial account. Also on the account would have to be the name where the account is being held. Now, we see there is no limit to the gift size, but the gift tax applies to amounts in excess of the gift limit, which we talked about a few moments ago. Now, the rules we've looked at so far apply to both UGMA and UTMA accounts. What's the difference between UGMA and UTMA? Here's the difference. Here's the difference. With an UGMA account, assets pass to the beneficial owner upon attaining the age of majority. Now, that's language you will probably see on the test, attaining the age of majority. What does that mean? That means when the beneficial owner, the child, becomes an adult in their state, then they become the owner of the assets. They can take control of the assets. They take control of the assets. Okay? Now, when does someone attain the age of majority in a state? That varies from state to state. That's why the name of the state where the account is being held must be on the account. It varies from state to state. Let's say that I'm the custodian of an UGMA account. The age of majority in my state is 18. When the beneficial owner turns 18, I know if they get their hands on this money, they're going to blow it. Maybe they become an adult at 18, but they still act like a child. They're going to take that money and they're going to spend it on cars, and they're going to spend it on video games, and they're going to spend it on all sorts of nonsense. What could I do to stop these assets from passing to that beneficial owner once they become an adult? Not a thing. It's an UGMA account. Not a thing. Now, if it is an UTMA account, now the assets pass to the beneficial owner, the child, no sooner than the age of majority, but no later than the age of 25. So here, the custodian could withhold the assets from the beneficial owner until they grow up, but they cannot hold the assets from the beneficial owner past the age of 25. So let's say the age of majority in the state is 18. I know when this person gets the money at 18, they're going to blow it. So I don't let them have the assets. It's an UTMA account. I can do that. And I can withhold these assets from this beneficial owner, but no later than the age of 25. So hopefully they'll grow up by the age of 25. Okay? And that takes us to a test tip. Don't take the exam after a big meal, but don't go to the exam hungry either. Don't sit down before the test and have a hamburger and French fries. You're going to be stuffed. Your brain's not going to be functioning. You're going to be tired. You do not do that. But don't go the test hungry either. Don't go the test hungry either. I mean, your brain doesn't work on a full stomach, but it also doesn't work, when all you can think about is food because you're hungry. So eat something light. Eat something light. A few other things to talk about here. Know yourself. Know yourself. Are you a morning person or are you an afternoon person? If you're a morning person, be sure you schedule the exam to take it in the morning. If you're an afternoon person, schedule the exam to take it in the afternoon. Play to your strengths. Play to your strengths. Be rested before you go take the test. I would not, the night before the test, I wouldn't stay up till midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning cramming. I just wouldn't do it. If you do that, you're going to go to the test, you're going to be tired. Our brains don't function well when we're tired. Get a good night's rest the night before the test. Arrive early. I would plan on arriving 30 minutes before my scheduled exam time. This gives me a little leeway. I plan on arriving 30 minutes early. If I run into an unexpected delay, I'm not going to panic. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to get excited. I'm not going to get upset. When we get excited and upset, our brains don't function well. When we're under stress, our brains don't function well. So plan on arriving early. That way, if you get caught in an unexpected delay, you won't fret. You won't worry. Okay? In fact, I would do a trial run the day before the exam or 2 days before the exam. I would know where the exam center is at. I would actually go so far as to walk to the front door. So take a dry run the day before the test. You know it's in this office complex somewhere, but you don't know exactly where. The day before the exam day, I would know exactly where in that office complex. I would do a trial run. I would walk to the front door and make sure I knew where the place was. Well, we've reached the end of our program. I hope this information is very helpful for you. I hope all the test tips that we've shared with you will be beneficial as you go forward. This test, folks, is not a difficult exam. It really isn't. There's nothing in this test that's particularly difficult. The problem with this test is there's just a lot of material. And the trick, the secret, if you will, to passing this test is to study hard. I mean, you got to read the license exam manual. You've got to listen to the videos. You've got to work on those practice questions. You've heard this before. You're hearing again. It's vital. I mean, you just got to do the prep work. Most people are not successful for this when they take this exam because they don't study hard enough. You're going to study hard enough. You're going to pass this test. You're going to get your license. You're going to build your Primerica business, and you're going to help families become financially independent. Good luck to you. See you at the top.